her second trimester. I always had two, but they were, in the first trimester.
And Tina,
Yeah.
can you grab the front door? I think Jim and Joe's there.
And the second one, I hemorrhaged. But nothing that she had.
Yeah, it's a difference. But this one was the child was bad. Slightly.
Stop reading.
Hi, Jim. Good evening. What's new and exciting?
How's Peter? What's he doing?
Working from home for the last 2 years. Corporate, employment services. investigates
Employment?
People's, backgrounds. Yeah, we didn't know the cards, so someone private investigator, that allows them to look into the background.
Oh,
They've actually,
So
their
so-
offices in Schaumburg because, only metals because they didn't need them anymore, why pay the rent, so everybody just.
I
works from
know,
home.
right? They figured out that they could do that. So companies hire him to look
So the
into,
company does this, I don't think any employer just looks at resumes and decides, oh, I'll hire this guy or not. Now everybody
has background
sends
checks.
them
right.
out to specialists who will look into your life.
Yeah.
Like they'll call the military to find out if you had a dishonorable discharge,
Yeah,
or
yeah, yeah.
you can find all that stuff up. And he writes a report, where he either recommends or not, he just says, here's what we got, you decide.
So he does give the employer the information he
All the
finds.
information,
Yeah.
and what's, your real resume for you, whether you like it or not.
Yeah, right. The true resume.
That's the business. His company was in Arlington Heights, and they moved somewhere else in downtown Chicago. Now they are out of like, South Carolina,
Okay,
and so now they're just a Chicago division of it. But this seems to be a new business. I asked him, he said maybe they'll move it to the Philippines or something if we out of work, but he said not likely. American corporations want, businesses want Americans checking
check,
these things
check,
out.
yeah, this is.
You
an
don't
American-
know if some guy in Hong Kong is gonna, lead you
Good
astray or
point,
what.
right,
And
right.
so he feels fairly safe.
Good,
It's a
good.
dull job, but he doesn't care. What do you do as a history teacher?
So, like- Oh, okay.
Teach.
Yeah, he didn't want to do that.
Right.
He did
Curator,
class observation for one semester.
And
And
he's
said,
like-
nah, I don't want to do this.
curator?
Yeah, he's not too high on that. He actually doesn't like to deal with a whole lot of old books and artifacts that makes you
Yeah.
sneeze. So he's allergic to
I
it.
think you got a history degree in hospital.
Yeah, well, that's something that could have happened. He went into a master's, he got halfway through that, and he said, yeah,
Yeah,
I'm gonna find a job.
yeah, yeah. So
And you see, he has no debt, as opposed to his wife who will never be out of debt. He's married.
Oh,
And she teaches. And
Yeah.
she'll never make enough money to pay that. She's gonna keep teaching until she's almost retirement, and
Where
then
did
maybe
she-
they'll forgive it.
where did she school?
She's in Lake County, one of the suburbs.
Where did she go to college?
Oh, that was, it's a good Catholic girl. She went to Loyola and DePaul, master's and.
There you go.
and-
There's the
and
money.
bachelor's, And it. she
Hello.
got
Yes,
Pell
how are you?
grants and loans, because your family couldn't afford to.
you're good.
So,
Wait, did she get any forgiveness?
she'll be good for 20 grand, assuming the Republicans don't block it, which they're trying to do.
Yeah, yeah,
So 20 grand will take part of it, but she'll still
still working.
spend a lot of money. And she wanted to get married at Loyola on the lakefront, the campus there, that beautiful church. It's right on the.
I see that from the owl.
Yeah,
You know,
she's so in love with that. This is where I want to get married. Okay, who paid for it?
Dad.
At that time, it was 8 years ago, and they were charging $2,500 for a
Are we
wedding,
on Zoom?
just to have the wedding there.
You think you're a first round?
Well, there's no such thing as.
Oh,
you're-
right,
you're an
right.
alumnus.
Right.
Yeah, that's nice. We'll let
So,
you come here.
yeah.
So
Yeah, yeah.
congratulations, you're one of us.
right? No, what is it?
Babsha.
Babsha, yeah.
Something like that.
Babsha and Babka. Hey, Chris.
Father,
How are you? Good. How you doing?
I'm here.
That's a start.
That's
Find your
nice.
seat.
No,
Sit over there. I'm gonna leave. all those things all night.
You're not-
You said you have you're better looking on the camera than I am.
No, man, what do you mean?
Okay, good evening, to those joining us online, Nico and Marita, good to see you guys.
Good evening.
All those who joined us in person, thank you for being with us tonight. Tonight, we are talking about the understanding naturally, I'm gonna use this as a resource, but more so of our theme. So we've been going over themes again for understanding Orthodox faith and adult spiritual enrichment. And this week being October 5th, we talk about blessed are those who study the faith, for their lives will be enriched beyond their expectations. So, as I've begun every meeting in that manner, how can you attest to your lives being enriched by studying your faith? How has it enriched your lives? Has it or has it not? Yeah, what do you want to say? Because I know you're someone who actively throughout your whole life have been studying the faith. How do you feel? Obviously, you're a byproduct, but how has it enriched your life? And you can give examples if you want to break it down.
Yeah, well, it still is enriching.
Mm,
I mean, from the time I was in Sunday school until now, I haven't stopped learning and being awed and amazed. And every time a new door or window is opened, so that you see something a little more clearly, or you see something from a different attitude, from a different perspective, but it's just awesome.
mm.
Never stops.
What tools were or what experiences did you participate in? Obviously, you said Sunday school. What else? I know you've gone through a lot. Give us an example, so to kind of give us some edification to your spiritual enrichment.
Sunday school, I taught and was director, the two of them, for about 45 years.
Mm.
But then I was in the choir. I was in a lot of committees, which I did not like being in a committee because I don't like listening to a lot of people just use a committee as a soapbox for their opinion. To me, it was always a lot of waste of time, so I would try to avoid it. And then I would avoid certain things like I chose to be with the children because they're so much more innocent than being. I don't like to point the finger, but
I'm learning a lot tonight. I got some changes to
when I
make.
when I first went to my former parish, I was told to come to the Philoptochos, and we were supposed to decorate the Pedafia and Gugupion. And all I heard was gossip.
Hmm.
And so I thought to myself, I don't need this, not for my spiritual growth. So I avoided that. I never did become a member of the Philoptochos until after about 35 years, where I just would join and give them the money because I believed in the charities that they support, but I just don't like to be around a lot of women. And there was a lot of scandal at that time.
So what groups or what activities helped your spiritual enrichment? Or whom?
Going to every lecture,
Mm,
going to, I've heard most of the theologians.
Hello.
I probably consider Father Hopko my spiritual mentor,
mm,
and but mostly going to the lectures that people would sponsor, churches would sponsor, and getting a new perspective. And
that's excellent. But that shows because naturally being one of our elders, it's given you the opportunity to understand the importance of your faith and how every aspect of it is that it's enriching. We never are fully satisfied because we have a desire to we should have a desire to want to learn more.
One thing is that the children taught me,
Hmm,
the children taught me. And because I was responsible, I had to look in and make sure that what they were learning was in accordance with our Orthodox faith.
Hmm.
And not something from Yahwehism or something that was not, that had a Catholic or a Protestant influence on it.
that's a good point. That's very good. Anyone else? I'd like to hear from yourself. This one's a really, a little bit broader, because what I'm going to turn into is for resources for yourself, for your future enrichment, and how we kind of study, which we kind of talked about the Bible last week. But I want to hear from yourselves, whether you've only been studying your faith recently or you've been doing it for your whole lifetime. What or how has it been satisfying and fulfilling to you? What? So it almost actually is a question, it's a testimonial to yourselves. Why do you come to Bible study? Why do you come to spiritual enrichment classes? What does it do to you? Or how has it left you? Chris, you want to say something?
Well, it helps you to learn more about our religion in the time. I mean, you take, in the last, say, 50 years,
Mm-hmm.
how it's changed to the point to where you take our age, you and I, could, not get personal, could I ask what church were you originally from? Not that. Was it in Chicago?
Originally, I'm from Milwaukee.
You're from Assumption up there?
Actually, my mother's family was from Assumption, and my father was one of the founders of St. Constantine and Helen.
And what was it?
Yeah. The books in the back of the church, the Psalty books and the priest books were all his from the monastery in Galway.
The reason I asked, I went to school up that way. I went to St. John's Military Academy. I was up there for 4 years. At that time, there was a lot of Greeks going up there. You know, the old timer Greeks from St. Connie's, St.
Mm-hmm.
Nicholas. We were brought up there. I mean, it was Greek. I mean, I went to St. George. I was working for St. George in Chicago. I was baptized there. The altar at St. George.
The Rianuses.
Yeah, Rianuses. I was brought up that way. After, when he started St. John's, he started here, because I moved out here in the early 60s. There was nothing out there. So I went to St. John's. It was starting at there from the Antons over St. John's. Now my wife, she's from St. Demetrius, and like you were saying, how things have changed over there. I mean, they were brought up, my wife, during her time, they had to go to Greek school. It was a Greek environment, everyone was there. Father Ebb changed the whole environment at St. Demetrius. They had a choir,
Mm-hmm.
they had a Boy Scout, they had everybody's, was brought up in that area, and that's what changed it. Now for myself, after we were at St. John's, we were there till I was McDarty started, when I was McDarty, when we started this. But as time progressed, we're learning more each year that comes up. I know there's a lot of talk about politics, whatever you want to say, in the religion. But that's common. I mean, we're seeing how things have changed in the last, say, 20 years.
How has it connected you to want to learn more? Why do you have a desire to want to learn more about your faith? Where did that come from?
Comes from when we're brought up. We're brought up during that time, whereby now you don't see it there.
I could probably attest to this entire group, even the couple that are online as well too. Every single one of you have had deep roots in your church and your faith. I mean, throughout your entire life, from growing up to being raised, and then to your own families and to where you are now. And so it's It's not an addiction, it's a necessity. You feel it, you want it, you desire it. So I guess the question when I bring up this topic that we talk about today is, why do you feel, or what is your opinions, and Marita and Nico, if you want to chime in too, why do you feel that it's not important to modern day Christians to study their faith? And I speak generally.
You always learn more. I mean, me being brought up in Greece, we had Physical twice a week. We had to go to Saturday morning to church with the school. Even my school was a French Catholic.
Mm.
And on Sunday, it was mandatory when it was the Sunday to go to in Thessaloniki.
No.
You couldn't get out of that. Plus, you had to take tests, to test the test every year to go to the next grade in religion.
So then, going back to what we were saying before, so then why do you feel that now, 2022, it's not
I
important?
always learn more. You can never say you know it
Why
all.
would you say it's not important?
Okay, good, so rebuke my statement.
Yeah,
You said not important?
yeah, he said not
Yes, I heard
important.
you say that. I thought you misspoke.
I-
Ended up.
I disagree.
Okay, good, tell me why.
I think it's even more important now with what's going on in the world and a lot of dissension and separation.
Well, maybe how I phrased it was incorrect. When I say it's not important, I'm implying that it's not important in the sense that
I mean,
people do not find it's a priority or importance to want to study their faith. Do you agree or still disagree? I mean, I would say my reason why I state that is because, like you look tonight, or even when I do my Tuesday morning ones, I think wide picture. When if you determine your amount of faithful, and then the amount to actually practice or want to learn the faith, the engagement is minimal compared to, I don't know, what you're gonna compare it to, other denominations. Now, you gotta put everything in kind of situational, and Jim, if you wanna chime in too, let's go to the one example. There's a distinct admission of us as Orthodox Christians that we are truthfully very weak in our study of the Bible and our faith to defend it in any time that a question has been asked of us about it. Protestants, us and Catholics, when you look at surveys and anything they've done from the Pew Report and these other things, we have many similarities because we're definitely liturgical beings. Liturgical beings, we're talking about the sacraments, the mysteries, and the participation in the worship of the church, but of our own. But Protestants, especially when you break up into Lutheran, Episcopalian, you name it, they're going down to their groups. They have a zeal, at least somewhat, that their focus is on a continuation of engagement with the faith and studying the faith. And then they also use the Bible as the backbone 100%. So then us is, we have the backbone of the gospel as well, plus tradition and everything else. Yet this is my opinion speaking, that's why I wanted to hear a rebuke or a discussion. I don't recognize that amongst our people as a desire to want to learn more about their own faith. Again, I am preaching to a choir now, because you're literally at an event tonight about learning about your faith. So that's what I meant, I don't believe. My question is, if it is yes or no, what do you feel or what do you recognize? Think about your own family. I think about family, friends. We can't, first of all, you can't even talk about it. Can you talk about your faith with your family openly? Well, no.
I can, but I'm the exception.
Okay, well, our family too, we have a lot of similarities, so we can openly talk about, there's good conversation. But there's other situations where you can't. Louis, what about you?
Oh, yeah, well, in my family, we talk about religion, but we're not all Orthodox either.
Wow, so what do your conversations relate around?
Like comparisons between Lutherans and Orthodox and, my sister, was raised Orthodox. She likes Lutheran better because it treats women better, she says.
Mm.
My brother-in-law, who's raised Lutheran, likes Orthodox because he likes the tradition. And
They're married?
And
They're married? Is
Yeah,
that the
they're
married one?
married.
That's funny. I like
Well,
that.
and-
I mean, that's pretty good.
And, he likes the steadiness of it.
Ah,
Lutheran, says, every 5 years they change, their teachings on this and that. And he likes the fact that Orthodox is consistent, you'd like to think that the Christianity we follow today is the same as what Christ taught and what early Christians did.
mm,
And I think we're closer to that, I would say everybody in my family, at least the siblings, are, fairly religious. My brother's a cantor,
that helps.
yeah, it does.
Jim, I know you said you shook your head no, so why would the no to you about talking with your family? Is it a hot topic or?
Because no particular interest. I just happened to grow up bilingual. I had to take French.
Mhm.
Multicultural, I happened to grow up in a neighborhood where I dealt with all kinds of different people. And we were taught at Koreas incessantly, overwhelmingly, was a defensive theology. There's us and we're all right, and them, they're all wrong, and be careful because they're gonna steal you away and send your soul straight to hell.
Have you realized, keep your point, especially amongst Greeks, the word proselytize is almost defined as like, not hypocritical, but it's almost like a sin. Because they're like, you're not supposed to.
You don't supposed to.
And that's kind of off
It
because,
was a contradiction.
Yeah, go ahead,
because,
continue.
Okay, we're so good. Okay, we're gonna spread it. Oh, no, we don't want those people.
Exactly.
So over
Yeah.
the years, it helped from learning what I do because it helps me compare and contrast and see how we're the same as other people, how we differ from other people.
Mhm.
I don't know about orthodoxy being that consistent. In my lifetime, it has swerved because it had to. If anything, the history of the Orthodox Church has been to kind of move with things and change with things and survive. And it's a survival mode, only because the culture has been that you have to survive or die.
Mhm.
So I've learned from that, and I keep learning from that, and I enjoy learning other cultures and other religions and other views, and I can compare them. So it's always been of great interest to me.
So then
Whereas
what,
my wife doesn't care. My son says, "Oh yeah, that's history," and he doesn't take it all that seriously. But yeah.
so when I bring up that question, and I'll ask Nico and Marita too to chime in a little bit. Oh, Marita? Yeah. Now, Marita, I'd like to hear from you because you should be respected as a byproduct of that because now Marita converted. She was not, you got baptized, I baptized you full on. I remember
Yep.
that, correct?
Yep.
Yeah, so
Exactly.
she was never baptized. So what was your experience or even into the conversation of what we've just been discussing right now?
I was going to say that it's funny. Nico and I were actually talking about this fairly recently. I don't remember the exact context, but we were talking about, going to church and Bible study and how it's really enriched our lives to put God first in your life. When you do that, things just kind of click into place. Nothing is really forced. You can count that things will happen as they should.
Mhm.
And to that extent, I feel that nowadays a lot of people don't put faith first because it's not always an instant gratification. And they think that other things have the answers. Well, I've got Google, I've got the internet, I've got celebrities, I've got people on the news telling me how I should think, how I should feel. Why do I need to read this book to, give me guidelines for my life of how to treat other people, how to exist in the world with everybody? So that has really enriched my life just because, not that to say that, my parents didn't raise me with values, but things like church were not forefront in their mind just because I wasn't raised as anything in particular. The first exposure I really had to religion in depth was when I went to Catholic high school. But since I was not baptized, it was always not everybody, but a lot of the nuns that taught the classes were kind of like, yeah, you can learn, but not too much. This isn't really for you. This is for the people that are actually like born into the faith. They're baptized. They're the true believers. You can be over there. And
Wow.
I never felt that in Orthodoxy. And that's a big reason of why I converted, because it was so welcoming and it was nothing that I ever experienced before. So it's been very fulfilling, to have, the weekly Bible studies and this enrichment and going to church on Sundays or paracleses, because if we don't attend those for whatever reason, like vacation or whatever, the week doesn't seem complete. The coming week seems off in a way, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So
Nico, great. Nico, I'd like to hear from you. Obviously, you're defined as a cradle Orthodox. You're born in it. What's your experience in this?
I am, yes. And when I brought, Marita, who was baptized, Markella, to St. Nectarios, randomly picked the church, I was very casual at the time. I just wanted to, check the list off, marry into an Orthodox wife. But attending the Bible classes and listening, it awakened something up in me. And ever since then, learning about the faith, being as close as possible to it, made me realize spiritual deficiencies I thought I never had, which helps me, work on them, making life brighter, and realizing that there's more to life than just the everyday work and grind that we're presented and conditioned to live in.
Excellent. Thank you for your insight. So when we go back to our topic and how we said about studying the faith, I think this one, when I place this in the middle of my kind of breakdown, it's supposed to be like a checkpoint to where you are, because it really has something very strong here, because I think about it, and I think it's that's why it's so sharp as an Orthodox Christian. When I brought up that first question, I said, when do you think, or do you not, or I don't believe that people want to study their faith. I agree, it's more necessity now than ever. What's profound is that we have every possible resource to study your faith now. I mean, you can be considered a theologian, respectfully, that overnight, compared to Hopko and all of them, Meyendorf, and all of these great teachers and luminaries of our modern day faith, who had a really struggle to find the resources, to struggle to find contemporaries to speak with. Where now, at your fingertips, which I want to show people, you can do everything about your Orthodox faith. And I think that's what kind of puzzles me, because we have our Metropolis website, and it has every title, why Orthodox Christianity, and then but that ones are very bland. Then you go to our archdiocese, and here I think our archdiocese, which has gotten a lot better, has a lot of really great resources, understanding about what it means to become an Orthodox Christian. But what I want to tell people is that even with a lot of my Bible studies and my spiritual enrichment classes, just a title, they are concurrent that I would also give to catechumens. So I personally, even myself, do not separate Orthodox Christian from the catechumen, because they're learning and they have a defined zeal, because they want to then get to that peak to then be chrismated or baptized, brought into the church. We now have to figure out, how do I retain that fire from when I was baptized as an infant to want to have a desire to continue to learn about my faith? Because the reality is, as our meetings and most of our participation show, there's not a plethora of, when I say young, I'm not talking about children or grandchildren. I'm talking about my age group. I don't see a plethora of 30-year-olds, 35-year-olds, 40, even up to 50, have an extreme desire or priority to want to learn more, not learn more about their faith. Now, my question to that point is, Why? Why do you personally believe? If you don't, and say, Father, I actually see the opposite, great. But why do you personally believe that it's such a ignored aspect of their lives? And I think that's what it is. I don't think it's malicious, it's just ignored. Why is it not a priority? Now you've heard me on Sundays, I talk about the importance of church. I talk about, in my sermons, why we need to participate in sacramental. Why do you feel that? Because we say this in all of our discussion points. We went through each one of these. Sing for the liturgy, live the faith, can have a very similar attitude to studying the faith. So now I go back to this one. Why is it not relative? Now, the relativity of this one as well, too, is that this is not a modern issue. When you were, first of all, all of you, my elders, 50 years ago, did you guys participate in Bible study?
No.
Okay, so one out of everyone.
But it was a more religious time
Oh, in general,
in general.
that's okay. That's a valid point, by the
Not
way.
like religious elements, religious things were just more a part of daily life.
Yes, I agree with that.
I mean, I'm absolutely sure about that.
Heck, I remember when I was a kid, now obviously you guys were then, our parents are just
Well,
younger
you were a
grandparents
kid, I was
then,
a grown-up.
but I remember, like even Sundays or Saturdays, even on CBS or on NBC, what always used to catch my eye was the glass church. Do you remember that one?
Yes.
The crystal, yeah. And I'd be like, what is this? And it's like, yeah, and they would talk, and then, okay, sometimes they'd have, if there was a case that had Billy Graham or whatever, but you saw an importance towards religion, and actually Christianity, into those aspects. Now it is completely removed, or if it's included, I see it like on CBS, like at 11 or 12 o'clock midnight, and they'll include like a half hour of Joel Osteen, or if you go on like cable, like at Freeform, they'll have, what's it called, the 700 Club?
But they gotta pay. You see, there actually was regulation at that time that the airways belong to the people, and therefore you must have public
Access.
access, and you must treat everybody equally, give everybody equal time.
Wow.
All this went to pieces a long time ago, so now it's all right-wing politics. So none of that's required anymore, and the idea that the airways belong to the people just isn't mentioned. So that there's a reason why that happened, and it was an
No.
economic reason.
Yeah.
There's money to be made, and we're not gonna waste time doing public service announcements, because that doesn't make money.
But 52 years ago, when I came to this country, the churches didn't have Bible class for adults.
That's all- so-
The Orthodox didn't, because we're not supposed to know anything. We're supposed to do what we're told. That's.
So
the
we-
original-
Well, hold on. Okay, good, excellent. So that we're on the same page. So then, Gaia,
There was no Bible study around my area at all.
so what'd you do?
So I went to my priest and I told him, I've been told that this particular Roman Catholic Church offers Bible study scripture.
Ah.
And he okayed my going there, and so I had gone there for a year and a half. And it was the nun that was teaching it had her doctorate in scripture.
Wow.
And in fact, my priest was going to her particular group to get more info on scripture.
Now, you do recognize that your priest was also an anomaly, correct? That was not the standard of every other Greek. So what I'm,
He was a former teacher, English teacher, and a member of the Peace Corps. And
I'm not saying that of a negative.
no, I know
I'm
that,
just-
I know
We're
that.
open-minded.
But if you know him, you have an idea.
I know
who
who it is, yeah.
And he said, no, we need this. And so I
And
went
that's-
there.
But then obviously, you're talking about Father Al, right? Who? Oh, yeah.
He had a brother.
Did anyone know who Father Chakis? Is he now in Pittsburgh?
Oh, he's retired now. He goes to Guatemala and he
He
preaches.
does missionary work.
Yeah. But he,
Is that his brother? Who's in Pittsburgh?
his brother
Is a priest?
was a monk or an Eastern. And so
But does their family in Pittsburgh? I see him at Pittsburgh churches. Okay, so that's it.
that was his original
Right.
parish.
So Father Chakis, yeah.
But then his brother denounced his monkship and became a lukewarm Christian.
Understood. So, and to that point, so that goes back to what you originally said. I put it in two manners. I put it in two definitions. One, if you go back to the history of Orthodox Christianity, modern 1821 plus, okay, the Krifos Cholio, they taught them as best as they could in the hidden schools, okay? Even in the free lands of the Slavs and other places, however they taught it, even then it must not have, it couldn't have been to the great degree that we recognize as Bible studying, because I look at my Russian, Slavic, Romanian contemporaries who are not under Ottoman occupation, and they also do not have a strength. But then you can also pause and say, well, then that probably came later with the reign of communism. You know what I mean? So that's when that was all torn apart, and for what, 5 decades, so you could say almost 3 to 5 generations worth, they were affected where, again, they didn't know the full practice of their Orthodox Christian ethos. Where when we look at this now, that's when I started with the 1 point with the resources. It's a very hard statement or question, but I really struggle. So this is a clergyman speaking to you, my elders, all of you educated and faithful participants, and those online with us. But it's gonna be my greatest struggle is how do I initiate? I think of this like of a burner. How do you actually light a flame when it doesn't even exist? To want to actually grow into your faith. Now, I will bring up some examples though, to say that it's not obsolete or that it's impossible. Nothing's impossible. We have our faith in God. But when I see the opportunities for me, and I want to hear from your point of views, whenever I see the opportunities, there's many that come up to want to learn about their faith, but it's very intimate. Something about their faith with people is very intimate and not into an open setting. Something about the open setting is intimidating. It could be, some people can find it demeaning. And I'm going to say why I think it's demeaning, because I think they have their own personal embarrassment because they don't know. And I think they struggle. There's a big struggle there. Where then I go to people's houses. I did an IUSMO today at 4:30. I was with the family for an hour. We were just kind of talking, but it had innuendos of Christianity, but just talking about general day-to-day life. But you see like how they just kind of open up. I can't tell you as a priest, I don't know, 90% of the time, that's usually how it always happens. I don't say, oh, okay, let's talk about God. No, we just kind of talk and it just kind of starts happening. You kind of see them, whether they ask a question, and I always laugh. You know why I laugh? Because I'm not at their question. I laugh like after the fact, after I talk to the people. That there's an intimidation factor to ask questions. You are told, you do. Or this is how it's done, that's it. Don't ask, the terminology don't question is so conditioned in every one of us, or ingrained in every one of us, that we then in turn now we can't even fathom to bring up a question. Because I was under the influence myself as a priest and as a young man that I used to think people didn't ask questions because they were afraid of what they were going to hear. I actually don't believe that anymore. I truly go back to an attitude of conditioning that your generation, your parents' generation, in many aspects, down, and I speak in general aspects. Obviously, I married Jane, who I obviously knowing her and the family, I define her as an anomaly because that's why she then has such a great strength, and then all of yourselves as well, to find the opportunities when they arise for retreats, for lectures, for discussions, for Bible studies. Because I told you this, the tonight meeting being titled Adult Spiritual Enrichment was only titled that way because in a survey a year and a half ago, people found that the Bible study terminology was outdated. What I just said? That means it's not relative to today. So, me being a smart aleck, I just call it adult spiritual enrichment. And it's the same thing.
Yeah.
So you tell me, that's when I go back to the question at the end. So what is it? What does it take for a Christian human? Again, not a Christian. We have to this now I put in my blinders. I'm only talking about Orthodox Christians because I am envious of Protestants. I know other churches that have incredible Bible studies, or then if I'll even hear from a person that's Orthodox Christian and they'll tell me I'll go to another church for the Bible study. It blows me away. It blows me away. I said, tell me why. Tell me what we don't do here, or we don't encourage, or we don't welcome, that then insinuates that. We see, again, I speak generally because, again, even those people, they're not many. It's a sporadic one person a few here that said, hey, Father, and it's it's not an Orthodox church. They went to like a Lutheran church. And here's the best part though. Here's what I said. I bring this up on Sundays. We talked about it with us before. The term of proselytizing. A neighbor asked them, hey, my church is having a Bible study. There's gonna be some coffee and sweets. Why don't you come with me? Why not? Then I bring it up to us. Not to this group, but in general. Why don't we invite people to come and see? Come and try. Are we afraid?
Your immigrant parents would then say, oh, but they're not Greek.
Right.
And that was the end of that.
There, you know what though? There is a, it's, what did you, I call it schizophrenic. You called it what? It's hypocritical. In other words, we want to grow the faith, but we're gonna only exclusively only want those we want in. It doesn't make sense. It's
Who was the ethnicity first? At the time.
Most of the
Because you had
time.
an Immigrant community.
now
Now it's changed.
and that now has changed for about 30 years though. The mixed marriages are 30 plus years. Okay, so then that's not an issue now. So now you go to the question. Yeah, Louis, what do you want to say?
You know, but you still have an awful lot of Greek in the liturgy. And, you know, and I just know because there are members of my family who are English speaking, and, you know, even if you have 1/3 of it Greek, you know, when they listen to, oh, he says, I didn't understand, it was all Greek. Well, I said, well, that's not true.
Oh,
2/3 of it was English, you know, and, but, you know, it's, you know, I know for myself, you know, I mean,
I think it's PTSD. I truly, and Anthony could say something. I truly believe the language barrier is PTSD. Because I do, so I've said this on my thing, I even tell people to their face, just like you heard tonight. I experiment. Everything I do at the church is an experiment. Changing the name of this was just to try it out. Sundays, I truly don't believe every Sunday is the exact same as the Sunday before. I always mix it up. There's Sundays that do predominantly English on purpose. And I like to see if anyone bats an eye, or then I'll add a little more Greek just randomly, just to see what happens. And so I go back to the PTSD. I truly believe it goes back to what I originally said. So why don't you come and see now? Why do you assume that it's all still in Greek? And then I tell people now where I trump my trump card to finally, you know, again, you're gonna say, what's my gain? Is that I have YouTube and I can watch a whole service and I can have proof to say, oh, wow, the service is predominantly in Greek. Now, if they're gonna complain about the Matins, the Orthodox, I define it as nitpicking. But then I'm also the person, as a clergyman, where that I also recognize the audience at that current moment. If my Orthodox, I have 30 Yegadas that are ethnically Greek, it would make no sense for me to tell my chanters, please do the entire service in English. And when you look at churches who either are fully English or Greek Orthodox, are fully English and have participation in Matins, they are new churches. I will give you an example. St. Nectarius in Charlotte. St. Nectarius in Charlotte is a byproduct of more English-speaking families wanting to leave Holy Trinity to create a brand new church so they could be predominantly for younger families and predominantly in English. But it was expressed that way, it was lived that way. And so then in turn, they were also to teach people that way. So then when they offer the Matins, it's all in English, maybe a sporadic Greek here and there, and that's it. And you actually have participation. To who is the audience? It would be asinine of me to do an Orthodox in all English. I tell Otasso though, now, when I see families and all, I see Nico and Marita and other ones. Whoa, sorry about that, guys. I didn't see it would be like a time loop there. We can stop the share. Sorry. To add English into the Orthodox, just to mix it up, so that we can recognize they can practice the English and note that the English can also have a beautiful flow, even in the Matins. The liturgy really is not a situation for me. But when I hear people about the language, and I want Antina to chime in and go back to Louis, I think it's just PTSD, because you're right. 30, 40 years ago, you wanted English to kind of be a bridge so that you can actually maybe learn about what you're doing. Yet the churches were just still so ingrained in the Greek that there was no, elasticity. You know, like, all right, let's try, or let's see if we can see how to mix it up. And then you also have, with all due respect, you had older Greek clergy.
Pure conservatism. That's how we always did it. That's how we gotta keep things.
Of course, you know, a lot of times you're constrained by what your chanters do too.
If they can do it.
You have older chanters like during the week.
Yeah.
Usually you have older chanters.
Yeah.
The English chanters are at work, you know, so you have more Greek during the week and
Correct.
then, you know, it's more English on Sundays because that's where the younger chanters usually show up,
True.
you know,
Good point.
you know.
Antina, what were you gonna say about the language? Hold on, shoot, I heard her, and then Jim, you could chime in.
Well, my husband is a convert to the faith. And when we first talked about it, I told him that, you know, he doesn't need to convert. But he had a strong feeling for orthodoxy. He learned about it, he was taught it by our parish priest and wanted to, because he wanted to raise our family together as one religion as well. So as far as the language was, he was full on Italian, so he had no idea about the Greek language. But today, when he sits in the pew, he sings all the hymns in Greek.
Yep.
And that is just from sitting and reading the phonetics and being in church every Sunday and constantly learning about what he's singing. And, you know, we were very fortunate that we had a what I would call a learning liturgy for the children at the church that we were previously from. So everything was in English, incorporated the Greek hymns, but that's where he learned. And it's not a hindrance to him. Now, your sermons, when you talk in Greek, or if, you know, totally lost.
Correct.
But as far as the hymnals go,
I
it's like
personally,
listening to it, you know, day after day.
and that's a good point. My personal, well, I didn't realize this until people finally brought it up, but when we changed over from, so we used to have the old, probably the Nike's Divine Liturgy books, the blue ones that also had the phonetics and also had the imagery of the priest and what they did. It actually is a very good teaching, guiding kind of type of liturgy. The problem is it just got beat up. There were no new updated versions of it. And so then we had to move on for something else with the Archdiocese created one. The problem with the Archdiocese one is it is simply almost exactly how a priest has his book. It's literally the actual service, we follow through, and then you guys would follow, but it doesn't incorporate engagement because there's no phonetics and there's no music, whether you have a choir or a chanter. And if you have a book like that, it'd be quite large, but I've been to Catholic and Lutheran churches, they have binders. And the binders, people follow along and they sing and they participate and stuff like that. Where I think that's where, and we are thinking about how we're gonna do it, but I'm gonna try to incorporate so at least people can follow along, or I've asked the Aquanists on the choir to at least then tell me what music they're gonna use. And then maybe we just create a few booklets so that people can have them and share with their families. Because last Sunday being was, you know, the choir Sunday, the appreciation, I challenged the entire community, but now I'm gonna have to encourage that challenge. That is, I expect everyone to start singing during the services. And I think that's where the problem comes into play. Again, I try to push away the barrier from the language. I think the problem is when you come to church, and when I go back to the attitude of PTSD, it was either you were forced by your parents, begrudgingly you went, it was a chore, or it was a check mark on your general schedule. Well, yesterday we brought it up, you were here yesterday in the morning. Yesterday, our group, we had about 15 late, it was really nice for our morning group. They brought up the idea that because of the scheduling of how people are now, we're so detailed to the hour that if it's not in their schedule, they don't need to participate in it. Or to make the time prioritized. The example is I showed them yesterday. We showed them Sunday service. We went from 9:30 till 10:30, and you literally saw from 20% to 60% to a full church in an hour span. And my question that I brought up, like, how can someone deem themselves in that manner appropriate that it's okay to come at 10:30 for service? Is that all the church means to them, about a half hour worth? What's the meaning of 10 o'clock to 11 o'clock? Why the beginning of liturgy? Now, I understand, again, if I'm gonna go pass about the Orthodox fine, and yes, I've heard priests that say, you gotta be there at Avlo Yemeni, when he says, blessed is the kingdom, or you can't come in. I've heard other ones that says, if you're not there for the gospel, the doors are closed, that's quite extreme. But all these things, or that, you can't take communion unless you're there for the gospel. All these things have some sort of symbolism to it, but then the question I ask to the people is, if it's not on their calendars, they're not gonna, it's not a priority. And the problem is, they don't put it in their own calendars to make it a priority. Now, and the best part of it is, we all have the technology with daily readings app, which I showed them yesterday, I showed to many of us as well. You can have the whole schedule of the services. You can participate. You can have prayers for your family before and after a meal, the Vespers, and you have the scripture readings and also know about the saints. So it gives you a lot of edification, gives you a lot of satisfaction as a Christian. And then even if you want the opportunity, they will allow it with the technology we have now, that you can download the calendar into your own Google Calendar or Yahoo Calendar or whatever Outlook, whatever you use. So when I go back to the attitude of our original question that we all talked about, so we've given everyone resources. We have everything for salvation. Why is it not necessary?
You're bombarded by so much stuff, media, it's like, when we were younger, like religion of the whole stuff that we were bombarded with, maybe a third of it or 25% of it was religion. Now it's like 5%. Sunday is NFL day. It's not the day you go to church.
Or then I even see with parents. I mean, I told excellent, and I told kids. I'll never forget the story. It happened to me about 5 years ago. It was in my previous parish where I was serving, and the kid was a sweet kid. I know him, his family, and I tried to get him to come into the altar. Okay, the problem that I had then, and that was one of my issues that I brought up, but I didn't agree that we started the altar groups at 6th grade and above. And I warned, and I kept trying to tell them, it wasn't like a warning stuff, but I just said, 6th grade is too late. You've already lost them. If they're not there from a younger age, they're not coming in. Modern day. This isn't 20 years ago, we're having armies of kids. You want them to be older, more mature. If you don't start them young, they're not coming in. What ended up happening? A 6th grader, that's a 12-year-old, right?
That's all.
Okay, was able to tell me their weekend schedule for 4 months, why they couldn't come to church. I literally sat back like this, blown, like remember that THX commercial with like the music used to blow the guy's hair or whatever, like that. I go up to the kid, I shake his hand, I'm like, wow, God bless you. You're right. Because of the schedule of that child, what she understood, and then naturally, in that whole conversation, not his fault, didn't hear from the parents. There was no priority that the church has to be in that schedule at some point. Did you hear that? That's the problem. That's an issue from us, that we're not making it a priority to put into our day-to-day lives. And I agree. I talked to Yaya, we joked around. I know she was in here Sunday, we were teasing with Antina, but she even said to me, I don't feel right. My week is not, doesn't feel right. Any of us miss a service. We heard it from Marita, and from other ones. When we're not here, it's just, we're off. So then my question is, how off are the ones who don't come at all? Or do they don't even recognize they're off?
I don't think, I'm looking at my kids and I haven't had the conversation, but listening to everybody, I think I can say that they would say, I don't think they understand why. Why should they? It's football, yeah. Why should they come?
Because
Every
they have to.
Sunday, why?
No, they have to,
Why
no,
take a shower and go to church?
Proso, that was you guys though. All of you were
Yeah.
agreeing. Why go? Okay.
Well, they did until, now they're married.
Now they're
and
adults,
kids.
yeah?
Now, how do I get them to come?
They're worse than before mine.
Yeah.
What do you say?
Because it was imposed and it never really caught on. It was short.
That's true.
Never really.
How much do you think the percentage is? 70%? It has to be high. It has to be high. You want to know why? Because when I was talking about with the group yesterday, just look at your churches. Every church has decreased. Okay, we're newer, we're only a 50-year-old church, so don't look at us. But look at all the old big churches. St. David Chicago in its heyday had 2,000 families.
Those people have also moved.
Wait though, time out.
Next generation.
Time out, though.
Fewer children and more things to do because you're a more wealthier person in the suburbs.
Okay, excellent point. But then the best the best example, you want to do an experiment for your churches is look at the south side. From when Stony Island moved to Palos, and it had nearly 1,800 families plus. And then you also have 4 other churches, Holy Cross Justice, St. Nick's Oak Lawn, St. Spirit on Palos Heights, and now Assumption Homer Glen, which used to be Olympia Fields, okay? So let's just put those 4 in that vicinity. You're telling me where St. Constantine Helen now is at 600 families. Where did 1,200 families go?
The priority went
They
down.
got old and they died. They
No.
had fewer
The
children.
priority-
Not 1,200 families though.
And fewer grandchildren. They intermarried and they did not speak Greek. And they saw other places to go to and they went.
From what we're understanding, from speaking with people, because not only there, St. Demetrius, Holy Trinity had 1,500 families at one point. Now it doesn't
Was a
exist.
Greek neighborhood
Okay, so it
there.
doesn't exist. So
We
what I'm
don't have
trying
the
to-
ghetto anymore. We're not in the ghetto. You can't make us go there anymore.
So to imply to your
We're trying to
point,
white.
Oh, you take,
hold on, but to your point, what I'm trying to imply is that even, you can't say that they all died. Even if you want to say that half passed or then intermingled, whatever, I'll even give you 40% of them, okay? So if you're telling me that 1,200 families, let me ask for 500 families where they went. There's a great issue now that there are people who are Orthodox by blood and baptism, not practicing, do not simply attend any institutional church.
You know,
We
there
have
were-
to, because
Yeah,
the
but-
parents said so.
Yeah, but they
And now
don't
I'm the
now.
only one left because my sister goes to Protestant and my brother goes to Catholic.
yeah, but now,
Yeah, but your brother goes to Catholic because he married a Catholic.
Right,
The Protestant?
because they had to compromise and find a nice church in the neighborhood where
You
they
know,
spoke
sometimes,
English.
sometimes it's where,
And they were welcome.
True.
you know,
I
remember one of my,
Listen, there's a lot of, hold on, sorry, Luke, one sec. There's a lot of damage from the past. But I go back, I can't put any blame on anything or anyone. It almost was, it's history, it's life, it happened. I can't, nor can I say that this is the reason, nor can I say this is where our church is at now. I will maybe make one point to my predecessors, who realistically, the priests, for whatever they did for the churches, they all realistically were heroes. All of you that started in these communities is pretty mind-boggling. When I say how powerful that is to see, people came together to establish communities, they established all the other appendages, Cub Scouts, this and that with these
They
churches.
raised the money to do it too, which was remarkable.
Okay,
Cemetery
so-
is very small.
So when we're able to do it, what puzzles me now though is we are eating the fruits of your labor. And there's no one to, the harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. That's exactly what our church is now. There's plenty of churches, there's faith everywhere, you can do whatever you want, but the problem is there's no one that wants to participate. And then also don't want to cultivate and train, because then I go back to the priests and my predecessors. I believe this because I knew most of them. I knew Father Byron's, I knew Trianda Phillips, I knew Kaludi, I still talk to, I still know all these guys. I knew many of them because I grew up here. But I'm a younger one. You guys lived it. You guys established it. My problem with this is I don't put anything to them because there was an attitude of not knowing any better. They did what they did and that's what they did and that's how they knew. Okay, so that's them. The problem though is, and I think this is where I'm really coming to the attitude, I'm thinking this from top now, is that the problem is we don't get leadership about growth. And it goes back to the leadership about having a vision for the future of your church. I'm sorry, I don't hear anything from my archdiocese telling me, Father Chris, what I'd like you to expect for St. Nectarios, because they don't know what St. Nectarios is, they don't know who St. Nectarios is, talk about Palatine, nor do they know any of the other small parishes. There's no blips on the screen for any activity, support this, help this, blah, 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 but what's my vision? What's my goal? What am I doing to you guys? All this stuff I'm doing because I'm doing it, there's not one thing from anyone telling me, you have to do this. So think about that one, because that's modern day now. And that's why you have the inconsistencies of all the churches. Why do you think there's only a few churches that do well and other ones don't?
I'll tell you why.
Why?
Well, let's just take an example. Now you take Saint Demetrius, okay? Take Panagia.
Mhm.
A lot of the people from Saint Demetrius and Panagia, we're getting some of them, okay? Working people's, the kids who were brought up.
Crumbs. Not much.
but again, they're moving out. You take my generation, it was all Greek. Priest said this, you had to do this, you had to do this, and you had to do this. We were brought up.
To your point, keep that. Very rare do I find people, hold on, very fine do I find people have a warmth about past priests, warmth. When I say warmth, they either knew them well, either had them at their house, invited them for food and stuff like that, a warmth connection. Everyone you talk to, whenever I hear that, I still mind boggling to go to your point and continue. I had people they talk to me about the Phillies,
Oh,
Kaludis, Kutulas, Byron. They had a presence, they had an aura about them. But I said, this is like mythology. We created it that was false, so they're all humans. Who were they? What were they? Why? Because they were stern, or they said something one Sunday, whatever the other 45 Sundays are out of the year. I mean, that's what I cannot comprehend. I get it though, it was a different time. It was a different ethos. But these are questions when we talk about it, we have to put everything on the whole platter when we talk about these situations. Yeah.
When I was brought up, first of all, the archdiocese, when that soul was not there, it was someplace a couple blocks down. It happened to be, I don't want to make a long story not like this, but he was a priest at Indiana. Bishop Yerasimus, bishop that took over before them, who were good friends, because actually we were my mom and dad. We got to know the bishop, well, came to our house and all like that. We go to the cemetery.
Yeah, he's my Elmwood, I know.
He's right there. And he was brought up there. We knew him and he brought it. They helped build, let's put it this way, they helped do. Today, I think people are not that close to the church. Okay, we know you, you're priest. The only thing they do is, they say, okay, I'm gonna come to church on Sunday. Come to church. They take communion, whatever they do. Out the door, they don't get involved in it. They stop everything. They don't have the time to do
Go back to Louis' point with everything else going on.
what's happening. And you're a priest now. We're trying to get people into our church. And people just say, hey, I got 10 other things to do, I'll do something else. What do you do?
I don't think they understand the importance.
Here's, when I went to school, in a public school, we took Good Friday off. It was the wrong Good Friday. But they
It's still
gave
titled
everybody
Good Friday, you know,
Friday off.
they don't call it that anymore. It's not called Good Friday anymore, it's called like.
Well, but they don't give you off
Institute
either.
Spring Day.
It's not Christmas
You
break.
know,
It's-
And that's not Christmas, it's winter break. You can't call it Christmas break, it's winter break.
And, even though for the Jewish kids and the Orthodox
Oh.
kids, it was the wrong day.
Well,
it was
well,
still-
hold on
it
though,
was-
that goes,
But it was, it was important. Somebody thought it was important. It was important to have prayer in school. We had prayer in school
Of
every
course.
morning. The thing is, it was not our prayer, but it sort of said God is important. Even
Still had
in
a
public
connection.
school,
Right.
Even in the
it's
public
still,
school.
it's like, well, then that's why, again, if you talk to many people, and we'll just kind of wrap this up now, but when you talk to many people, when people of the Jewish faith and culture, they make it a priority to make sure that those are established, especially in the areas where there's a plethora of them. That's why here the northern suburbs and areas, they still have the Rosh Hashanah, they have Yom Kippur and stuff like that. And I mean, we're talking about with a great vigor, where for us, I mean, we don't bat an eye, and then we also water it down so much so that we'd be like, well, if I can't make Friday, Good Friday, I will, at least I'm gonna go Saturday night, get the light for, 10 minutes and I'll walk away. Did that do anything to you?
Well,
I mean, it's,
I'll tell you, I used to do that because I'm not a person who stays up late. I've fallen asleep in
Oh,
church.
you went
during
with my
resurrection-
kids, I think.
I've fallen asleep during resurrection services, so.
It is late.
I like going to California because somebody else can drive to the service. But I used to show up and then I used to go home and go to sleep.
yeah, I'm not, it's not a judgment attitude. What I'm implying is like, again, it's categorizing, well, I'll just do this and go for there. Now, let's just turn it so we can make it into a positive. There is a lot of hope. And there is, and I said it before, like when I speak to people individually, you see it in them, and that's what really, always intrigues me as a person. I think as a priest, it intrigues me. When I'm in setting, heck, I could be going out to like a grocery store. If I wear my collar, but even when I go out, especially in a public area, I try not to wear my collar or my robe because naturally it just brings attention. Okay, so I'll wear either my black shirt or something, a polo underneath, and just be me. But naturally, if someone knows me, they'll come up to me like, "Hey, Father," I'll be like, "Hi, how are you?" I'm not that. But if I wear my collar or if I go to other, even if I go to dinner parties or we go to like galas, something about us. I mean, we're magnets. People just come up to you and then they'll start talking to you, and I just talk to you like just literally just open up like a big book. And but then it goes to the thing. You don't know what the person is dealing with or going through. So then I think that's where then us now as Orthodox Christianity, we are really Orthodox. I've said this before in this term for Bible study, but in our churches. And St. Ignatius is a great example of that too. We're an Orthodox Christianity realistically 2.0. This is the next level. How do we now turn the why into the how, into the engagement, to the faithful? Because we have to be able to offer it. So in other words, all these resources are incredible. I am so blessed. So realistically, as a priest, I'm spoiled. I know I'm spoiled. I could study my sermons at any time of the day. I don't have to go to libraries. I don't have to have multitudes of books like all my predecessors have. I have some people pass them down to me, but all my stuff I can really get a lot of the resources from online. And so for me to offer sermons and studies and everything else, it's easy and it's wonderful because then I can actually then offer to the faithful. That's why like when we offer Zoom and I offer these things, or we can live stream a service, we can live stream a retreat or whatever. It's trying to bring it to the faithful. I think the most important thing that we all have to remind ourselves, for all of you, is just it's kudos and God bless you and don't stop. So if you're already wanting to learn, keep that zeal because it is an edifying fervor for every one of us. We gain more by us growing with Christ. And you're right, I commend, not biasly, but in general, but all of you, because recognize that year after year, month after month, Sunday after Sunday, whatever it is, you still come and you still attend, and you either learn something new or give you a new twist on what you were learning in some manner. And then from there, you can also bring in wisdom that you've also learned, so we can actually add it to the meat and the grind of what we're trying to study as faithful. And then from there, what I think the challenge has to be, I truly believe, it goes back to the schizophrenic bipolar attitude that we expect as Orthodox Christians. We got to start proselytizing or being real disciples. When I say disciples, you got to start inviting people to come and see. And whether you tell them like, "Hey, I'm going to Bible study on a Wednesday night, why don't you come?" It could be your sister, it could be your brother who has no ties to the church. Just have them see what they say. I don't know, because when I talk to most people, if I send people right now, if I go to my phone book and I send like about 10 messages, I can ask like, "Hey, what are you up to right now?" At like 7 o'clock on a Wednesday night. I guarantee 7 to 8 out of the 10 will say nothing. I already had dinner. We're just kind of relaxing. The kids are kind of getting ready to go to bed. Okay. So in other words, there's no excuse.
One can come.
Well, not even that. I just said even possibly 7. Or then the opportunity is you can come online. Or then if you don't come online, just put it on your phone wherever you are. Just have it in the background noise. Listen, live it, participate, and try to learn. Because I have people that tell me, I listen to podcasts, I listen to all this stuff. I said, great. So your church has a whole YouTube channel, various services, sermons, everything. Do you listen to those? And I'm not trying to speak bias about me. Go out and check out other churches. Me, I don't know if you could see, but like on our YouTube channel, you could see like what I look up at. You could see here, you could see I know it has weird things. Sometimes they're like Jeffrey Dahmer. But like here, you can see I've seen different services. Look, St. Mary's OCA Metropolis, here at Baraclis, St. Ignatius Live. You can find everything and everything that you want. So it means, in other words, the opportunities are there. We now have to start encouraging each other to learn the hows and whys. And the bottom line of why we're here tonight is not only for my edification, it's for my salvation. And that's the problem, is people don't understand that terminology, salvation. Salvation is irrelevant in 2022. It's not even a concept. It really isn't. Because even if you're baptized, I have couples, so let's just think of it formally. Let's finish with a couple minutes. This is the attitude. I have people that bring me children for baptisms, who then in turn, I can't predict or guarantee that they're going to raise a child Orthodox Christian. Not implying that they have to, but through their own actions. And so when I offer my words at the end, I congratulate them. I challenge the godparents and the parents. I'm like, it's now up to you. We don't have formed CCD like the Catholic Church does, where the children have to participate and then actually be really confirmed and brought into the church and everything else, so they can prepare for their first communion later on in their life. We don't have that. We have Sunday school, but it's up to the parents. It's up to us as a family. So when I said before, do we talk about our faith? Do we when we go home? Even on Sundays, I wonder how many on Sundays after church they say, hey, did anyone think about what Father Chris said? Or did anyone notice anything different with today's service? You know, do they actually talk about it? Is it actually a thing? Or is it just, like I said, it was just a chore? I just did it, okay, next. Because that's not a bucket list. That's not salvation. And that's a problem. Salvation, the whole point of why we do everything is for our salvation. It's so that we can have a relationship with God. But it has to be tangible. I have to understand, what is my relationship with God? And if it's weak or I don't recognize it, how can I make it better? That's what's going to start. 1. 2, I'm saved. We're all saved. When someone says, are you saved? Yes. They'll say, do you believe in Jesus Christ? I know who Jesus Christ is. He's my Lord and Savior. He died for my sins. He rose from the dead. Well, I know how this is. No one won't say that. Why do you think people waver so much when Jehovah's Witnesses come to the doors? Huh? Why do you think people are afraid when they hear? Well, then you go back to the Joel Osteens, or any modern, even Willow Creek. Little Europe. We're anomalies. We know, but most people are actually afraid. Why? Because they're afraid to have just general conversation. But that's because to them they have a zeal because they're just there to proselytize. Our goal is we're so foreign to teaching or encouraging that we don't know how to welcome. So I think for us to go back to our main topic that we discussed before is we have to really figure out which you all have the answer for yourselves, why you want to learn more. How do you now spread that warmth of learning to want to learn more by encouraging other ones to come? And I see it again. You got to forgive me too as a priest. I am a young gunslinger priest. I am. I think I have my foot on the pedal. Even if there was 50 people in here, I'd still not be pleased. You know, that's why I said before, I go to the attitude, as I said before, when I know there's hundreds of thousands of Orthodox Christians in the Chicagoland area who clearly are not participating in some manner in any church, let alone an Orthodox church. So when you think like that, the question then should be, so it's never ending. Great. I look back to the apostles. There was no thing like, oh, okay, we got Corinth. Okay, let's stop there. Good job. Let's give ourselves a pat on the back. Oh, Thomas went to India. That's good. We don't need to go farther. You know, that's good. Someone went to Ethiopia. Okay, good. No, they went. And they went because they believed. And they went because they wanted to live with Christ and to express Christ into the world. We got to start figuring out how we are living that and now how to also express that ourselves. I encourage, that's why I say now it's actually the encouragement. If I tell people through your actions, now I'm challenging people to actually start inviting people to come and see. You know what's funny? I have seen some of that. I had today, the one I did, when I'm going to conclude with this story, which was so heartwarming, is someone, so there's this, okay, so it was a Greek family, the daughter, the two grandchildren, and this typical white woman I didn't recognize, blonde hair, okay, and then the son was going to come later, okay, and I'm greeting them, how are you, a couple words in Greek, and then mainly English, like, oh, this is our neighbor, Carol. She's like, I came to your church a few weeks ago. Violet, the invited me. I really enjoyed it. I just wanted to come see you and be a part of the blessing. Wow. Did you know what I just said? Okay. Not that it's like a superstar's coming in. The general scope of the faith, and because she was invited and welcomed. You said that before. That's a powerful one. The welcoming. The welcoming is so key to anyone. And I said it to our Greek Fest. So we had our Greek Fest meeting. I said I was actually really disappointed with our Greek Fest this year. The money's irrelevant.
We have food.
What?
We have enough food.
That's irrelevant. I'm disappointed about our Greek Fest because at the upfront, where people come in, half the time there was no one there because they didn't have anyone assigned to actually welcome and to greet. So when they come in, I imagine, and I said, I only recognize because I've worked in restaurants, I've worked on other things, and the same thing here. If you come in and there's no one even comes up and says, hi, welcome to St. Nectarios. Here's the thing, just to say, hi, how are you, Carlos? You know, stuff like that. I could be in a foreign land. I don't know. Not all the time, and that's not her job. That's what I'm saying. There's not other ones ever being there. And that's the thing. That's actually your first key point. You want to get them at that first moment. The drive-through, where they had people stationed, they had that. That worked very well. but the foot traffic, which was enormous, especially Saturday and Sunday, was quite disappointing because now no one complained, but it was visible. And the problem is, and sadly, many people think that the Greek Fest is a gateway to Orthodox Christianity. It certainly is not. It actually has nothing to do with our faith. Very disappointing. And I actually have vocalized that. So it's like, there's no real promotion to say, come see our church. We offer church tours. Not many people come to participate in them. And then we don't even like make it like a big thing to say, like, you know what? I even challenged them too. I said, why not pause the food for 15 minutes and tell people, while we're doing a change, why don't you go in the church and have a church tour?
Pre-COVID, you guys used to have people come into the church.
We still do.
We used to.
Yeah, we still do. I'm not implying we didn't, but I'm saying, like, Chris was in there, he was holding up for everyone, but I was, in other words, I was not promoting my faith. It's
But
just,
they're
I was a
in
rep,
church and you don't let them.
I was a restaurant for 3 days. Do you understand?
Yeah, I
That-
know, I know what you're saying.
Now, there's philoxenia, there's philotimo, there's some aspects of that, but sadly, other than that, I don't know where the Christian aspect is, because I'm also receiving a tender from them. That's called money. I'm giving them food, they're giving me money. I'm not giving them Christ. How am I giving them Christ? From a gyro? From a half a chicken? You know what I mean? But see, people aren't recognizing that. Now, me, as a priest, and actually, because that's how I work, I feel like a general manager where I literally go by tables and I say, oh, thank you for joining us. God bless you. Hopefully you can join us for nothing. That's one person to 1,000 people. See, that's the ethos as an Orthodox Christian we're lacking. Why don't we go up to others? We've been on Sundays, and so they brought it up yesterday too, so I'm gonna finish up. We're gonna wrap up, everyone. Thank you for being with us tonight. I know it's a little late, it's 8:15, but this is a really great topic on discussing. And then next week, we're gonna continue with our other themes as well too. God bless you, Marita, Nico. I hope you guys have a great night. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you, everybody.